Ecclesiastes, there is a season for everything. A time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for speaking, a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing, a time for birthing, a time for dying. The time of mourning is complicated. We have beautiful memories, and yet we feel this loss because of those beautiful memories. We connect Sylvia's memory through to our tradition, through the recitation of psalms and with prayers, linking her life to the people of Israel and the eternity of the Holy One. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, honor those who revere God. Never retract a promise once made, though they bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, and you shall stand firm forever. And every time that I read this psalm, I think about the reality of life. You know, this psalm is not just about somebody who's especially pious, someone who cloisters themselves in a Beit Midrash and studies Torah all day and all night. This is a psalm about a human being who lives in the world, somebody who does business. And Sylvia and her husband Ted, they had a business, and they lived that business, and they worked in that business with integrity, not for 1 year or 2 years, but for decades, for 47 years. And yeah, there are moments when they could have made a quick buck, but that's not how they ran their business. They ran it with honesty and with integrity, serving the community over and over and over again. And that's what that psalm is about. It's saying, how do we live our lives not just in that cloistered environment, but in the messiness of real life. With the loyal, you deal loyally. With the blameless, blamelessly. You deliver the lowly folk and humble those who need humbling. Ki ata ta'ir nari, you light my lamp, God. You light up my darkness. The way of God is pure, the word of Adonai is pure. God is a shield to all who seek refuge, from the 18th Psalm. I'm going to call upon Cantor to lead us in the Psalm of David, the 23rd Psalm, and then we'll repeat it in English on the card you have.
Adonai roi lo efsai, birote sheyar bitzeni, al me menuhot, yenaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzerech, yancheni v'magle tzerech, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begetz al mavet lo ira כי אתה עמדי, שכתך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפניי, לפניי, שולחן נגד צורריי, דישנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, כתב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר.
Join together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So when I was a little kid, and I'd read that line, I didn't know that anoint was a positive. I thought it was annoy me. So it's amazing how we can look at the same words, sometimes misunderstand them, and we learn and we grow. And I look at that line, you anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. And that is an act of great benevolence, an act of love. You know, when a parent has a small child, and not such a small child, how often do you have to anoint them with lotion or oil? And as we grow, sometimes that relationship changes. And sometimes you have to anoint a mother with oil. It's an act of great love. It's an intimate act to put lotion on someone, to put sunscreen on a spouse or a child, a parent, to be with them, physically present with them. And so to speak of God as anointing our heads with oil is to speak of God as being with us, to be in relationship with us, loving us, caring for us, supporting us, even in the time of loss, even in the time of pain. And I think about Sylvia, who was blessed to live almost 102 years, 101 and a half years. How many times in her life was she there for you? And how many times in your life were you there for her? Being there, supporting each other, sharing love, kindness, and even intimate gestures of that respect. Terachem av abanim, rachem Adonai al Yarav, As a parent has compassion for children, God has compassion for us. God knows how we are fashioned and remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass, they flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them, we are no more. We don't know where they grew. But God's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging, from the 103rd Psalm. The children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her. I'm going to ask Erwin to come. There are a couple memories of his mom. Just be very careful over here. It's very uneven. Or do you want to stay there?
No, this one. It's very hard for me to think of too many things at once right now. My mother certainly had a very long life. And it was wonderful, the vast majority of it. Got to stay in her home where she wanted to be. She recognized at a certain point it was wrong. I didn't understand it. Said it several times. And I will obviously miss her. I will some other people that knew her pretty well. Last thought, I spoke to a friend last night that I grew up with. Steve probably knows that lady. And we were all families who lived in St. Pete. And a lot of the family got together for trips and other things, whether it was for sports, play, or to travel and go do stuff. She reminded me how much fun they had together and how they enjoyed their lives, bringing up families, participating in the community, but just enjoying all that. And it's been a while since she was able to do that. But I remember her saying to me when she wanted to go home, and I said, "Mom, you can't go home. There's nobody here to take care of you. I'll find somebody." So we'd get mad at each other, and I'd say, "Okay, go find somebody." She'd say, "Well, you got to find them." "No, you want to go home? You find them." Or she'd say, "Take me home." And I said, "Take your go home." "Well, you have to take me home." I said, "I'm not taking you home." So we would do that for a while, and then she would forget about that. But in so doing, she brought back a lot of different memories, different things. Remember this, remember that, remember. She had a sharp mind right up until a few weeks ago. So when I was reminded of this last night with this phone call, I realized that all that's in the past. She would say to me, "You, good Hannah, as everybody needs to enjoy life." So while I miss her terribly, even with all the phone calls and what's going on here or there, she did get to do all that stuff. She had a wonderful life. I miss her terribly.
heard from people, and Cam Whitner said to me, remember Ted and Sylvia and Ted and Sylvia. And all these people from the generation of your mom, who they had such close friendships. It takes a lot to want to go on a vacation with somebody. The trust that you're going to want to see the same things, you're going to stay on the same budget, you want to eat at the same places. And your parents really enjoyed that because they saw that traveling with their friends expanded the experience. And sometimes you have to make a compromise, but it was a blessing for them. I've shared this text before from Bereshit Rabbah, the commentary on Genesis. That they notice the sparseness of the language of the Torah. The Torah generally speaks briefly. We have all the commentaries to help us understand, and when there's a repetition, there's a reason for that repetition. So it speaks about Abraham, that he was old, and that he was advanced in years. And they say, why do we need both? Wouldn't it make sense? Abraham lived a long life. Enough. But no, we have both of those. And the Midrash teaches us that some people, they live a long time, but they don't have that dignity, self-respect. And there are people that have that dignity and self-respect, but they don't live such a long time. But Sylvia was someone like Avraham Avinu, like Abraham our father, who had both that dignity and that long life. And that is truly a blessing. I want to share a few words based on our conversation. I'll wait for the ambulance to go by. This week in our Torah, we're reading Parshat V'Eskanah. It's a big parsha. It has the 10 Commandments and it has the Shema. The book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, is in some ways a retrospective of the Torah, a retelling, a reminder of where we've been and where we're going. And according to our Torah, Moshe lived to be 120. Sylvia didn't quite make 120, but if you turn the numbers around, 102 sounds a lot like 120. She was getting close. She lived a beautiful life. She was born in New York, and as we see from this flag here, she served her country. She married her beloved Ted and was an influence for good in this world. She raised Erwin, and Rosalind here in St. Petersburg. And she educated her children to make good choices, to show respect for others, to be kind, to be compassionate. Hannah shared that in the decades she knew Sylvia, she didn't hear her curse once. She was unfailingly polite and exceedingly generous and gracious. Now married for more than 50 years, Ted and Sylvia had a beautiful relationship. For 47 of those years, they built their business running the canteen at Admiral Farragut independently. There they knew cadets for generations. They're remembered fondly at the school, and I heard how their influence even touched the moon. When they gave an astronaut, a former cadet, patches from the school from their store, and those patches made it all the way to the moon and back. And Sylvia, she was an athletic woman. She played many sports, except for swimming.
Right.
She encouraged her children to succeed academically and athletically. And she really enjoyed being with her husband. She enjoyed his presence. She enjoyed his company. They lived together. They worked together. They even played golf together. And since their business worked mostly on that academic calendar, summers were spent traveling, restocking and resupplying the store. But they made those restocking trips an adventure for the family. Erwin shared how those travels would involve picnics with extended family in New York, and enthusiastically documenting everything. I heard there were more cameras than people on some of the trips. And even as those summers were spending rather than earning, they made sure that throughout the year their children always had everything they needed, and much of what they wanted if you could make a good case for it. Involved with the synagogue with B'nai Israel for decades, Sylvia and Ted had so many friends here. They'd travel around the world to Europe and to Israel with their network of friends. And connecting their work and their faith, they'd host the Jewish cadets from Admiral Farragut, bringing a whole bunch of kids in uniform to the high holiday services, making sure that those kids would have a Jewish experience even in that more formal military environment. The Shema that we read this week in the Ve'ahavta paragraph teaches us, Meshinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam b'shiftecha, v'vetecha, uvlechtecha b'derech, uv'shachbecha, uv'chimecha. Teach these words to your children. Speak them when you stay at home and when you are on a journey, when you lie down and when you wake up. The words of Torah were part of Sylvia and Ted's life. They were part of the home that they raised you in. They were part of how they'd find kosher meat when the family would come in town, and we didn't always have a Joel's in St. Pete. We had to go to Jacksonville, Atlanta, ship it down from other places. Our Parsha teaches us that we are to honor our parents, honor our father and our mother, kaved et avicha v'et imecha. And the truth is, both of you honored her so beautifully. You devoted time and energy caring for her in these last few years and allowing her to stay in that home that she loved. She loved her space. She needed her privacy, and they helped her fulfill those desires. She was a strong woman. That you thought she'd outlive you, how strong she was. But she showed that strength not just physically, but with her character. During World War II, she was in England, and she even interpreted in Germany at the end of the war. She was not afraid to do what was right. Erwin said that when he was a kid, she wasn't a large woman, but she knew how to teach a lesson to a child. She knew when to give a child space, to give them leeway, and when to reel them in. She taught how to behave, how to treat others, and had such wisdom for the world. Erwin said yesterday, I don't know that I could have asked for a better childhood. He was immense. And to speak about someone that way, we all love our mothers, hopefully. But to speak with that intention and that love and that respect, it's not every mother is so easy to speak about that way. And the fact that you could, this wasn't reaching, this was who she was. That is a stronger eulogy than anything I could possibly say. I can't imagine any better trait than that. And I didn't really have the privilege of knowing her much. But hearing about her, and knowing you both, I know what kind of parent she was, what kind of woman she was, what kind of member of the community she was. And I know she was a blessing for all of us. And her memory will continue to be a blessing for all of you, not only today, but in all the days to come. You know, my reminder in these strange times is that the funeral is not the end of the conversation. I invite you to share your memories, to call Anna and Erwin, to tell your stories in the days and the weeks and the months to come, to make sure that they're hurt. Because normally when we sit Shiva, I have very rarely been to a Shiva where somebody didn't hear something new. They've known a mother for their entire life. And you hear the same stories over and over and over again. That's who we are. But sometimes, almost all the time, we hear something new, something different. So share that with Erwin. Share that with Hannah. And help them have those continued memories. We're going to lower the casket now. And then we will symbolically bury Sylvia. One of the challenges in this moment is adaptation. This adaptation I don't like so much.
No.
But well, to me there's something very beautiful about taking the shovel and putting the dirt upon the grave. So I hope this is a short-lived adaptation. But what we're going to do in just a moment is to take a cup of dirt and to put it upon the grave. It still makes that same terrible sound. And I think to me as a Jew, that terrible sound is one of the most important things we can hear. Because it helps us as, mortal people to feel the difference between the relationship that we've had and the relationship that we will have. Knowing that at this moment from now on, the relationship is through our heart and through our soul, and is no longer a physical one. May Sylvia go unto God and peace. Once the casket is lowered, we'll take turns. Beverly has the cup, and the dirt is over here. We'll give some space for people to sort of put that very carefully. This is very uneven today. I'm going to put that on that side. Dirt is there, and then and this way. Get out of your way. Do you want me? I think let me get it big time. Sure. Imagine it's the mud. Because I would be.
Would you like to play some music? Yes. No. for the water.
I have with me dirt on the Mount of Olives that your mom should have a little taste of Israel with her here as well. I invite Cancer to going to rise for Al Malay Rachamim.
במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת סימת טומאה בת Harry Umini שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה אנא בעל הרחמים אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Sylvia Abe. She has gone to her eternal home, merciful one. We ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Together we'll say the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah. B'yalma, Yibrach, Gerutei, B'yamlech, Machusei. Vayechon, V'yamechon, Vayeh, B'chol Beit Yisrael. V'gala, Uzman, Karib, Yimro, Amen. Yitech, Shmei Rabbah, V'chorach, V'yolam, Alamei, Almaya. Yitbarach, V'yishabach, V'yita'ah, V'yitkomam, V'yitasei. V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalam, Shnei Nekutsha, B'richu. Ve'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata Tamaran v'yoma v'yimru Amen. Eish Lamaraba Min Shemaya Nechayim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom b'romav V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I invite David to present the flag and then we'll have one more student prayer. The mysteries of life and death can be beyond human comprehension. We're perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish call those we love. In sorrow confronted by death, which has taken Sylvia from our midst, we feel our own frailty. Like morning dew, we glisten for an hour or two and disappear into a new day. Ro'eh Yisrael, shepherd of Israel, guide us. Your flock with love and compassion. If in our grief and desolation we grow distant, do not abandon us, O Lord, but draw us closer to you. Grant solace and comfort to those who mourn. May they sustain each other with the blessing of memory, the memory of the life of the beloved Sylvia, the beloved mother. In the valley of the shadow of death, beside the still waters and in the green pastures, you, Adonai, are our shepherd. Be our strength, our shield, our guide, and be our comfort throughout all days. Let us say,
Amen.
Amen. So we say to you, may you be comforted among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And we are embracing you with love, even from a distance. So just as a reminder for everyone tonight, because tonight is Tisha B'Av, instead of having service at 6:30, we're having services at 8:15 tonight. And think of you and think of your mom. I wish everyone a blessed day. Take care.